So I'm with Minnie MacLellan. Minnie, you are the head teacher at St Columba's Primary in Oban. And we're going to discuss today, Minnie, how you got to the position that you're in today, how you got to become a head teacher, what training you went through to get there, and any sort of hints, tips and, sort of career advice that you could give to anybody that's either wanting to get into teaching or to work in childcare. Okay, so thanks very much for spending your time with us today. So first of all, can you tell me when you first thought about getting into teaching?
Probably later than most people. I had already done my degree when I decided then that once I finished my degree, I thought, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do here. My degree was in business and accountancy, and I thought I didn't find it the most engaging thing to be doing in the whole wide world. And although I really enjoyed the business side of it, I didn't see myself doing that for the rest of my days. So my mum was actually a classroom assistant in a school, and we'd always helped out with bits and pieces for over the years of cutting out and bits and pieces to help her. And then I thought, actually, I quite fancied trying that. So I asked, could I go and do some work experience there? And I did. And from then on decided to go and do teaching and never looked back.
And that's quite a change, isn't it, from what your degree was in? So what did you have to do following that then in order to get into teaching?
I went and did a postgrad at Strathclyde Uni in primary teaching for the year, which was a very hard-going year, but very worthwhile, and I loved it. In comparison to how I felt about doing my degree, that it was absolute chalk and cheese. I really enjoyed every minute I did of it, between the uni side of it and the placement side of it, because it was a 50-50. And it was hard work. It was very hard-going, but really rewarding, and I was under no doubt that that's what I wanted to do.
And so did you then have to do any childcare qualifications as well on top of that? Because your degree wasn't necessarily child related or anything? No, the PGD was enough then?
The PGD was enough for me to go and do it.
And would that be the same still today?
Yes, it would still be the same today. The only thing I did was I left school at the end of fourth year. I really wasn't. School wasn't a place I wanted to be when I finished at the end of fourth year. I debated going on to do my Highers and then thought, no, I applied to Cardonald College and I went and did an NC in business admin to start with. Really enjoyed that. A bit of a scary world being in Glasgow on my own, living in a flat on my own with a flatmate.
Where was it? Where were you from? Sorry.
I had lived, originally I'm from South Uist, but I did fourth year in Oban High School and then left, went to Glasgow. It was quite scary, the thought of it, but did it, then went on to do the 2-year HND course. And then thought, well, I didn't leave school because I didn't enjoy learning or studying. It just wasn't the right place for me to be. And then I went and applied to uni and I got into third year because of the qualifications I'd done. I'd got straight into third year, so I did my degree year in Paisley Uni in business and accountancy. And then because I didn't have any Highers when I went to do my postgrad, I had to do two courses for English, and both of them for English, actually. I had to do Communications 4 and Literacy 1, I think they were called it. I don't know if that's still the case now, so that because they were an equivalent to a Higher to enable me to go in and do it. So I did that over a very short period of, I think, about 2 months, and then was able to, then went and did my PGD.
And you were talking about placement earlier when you did your placement on your PGD. How did you find that? Was that something that you, did you immediately like that, or was it quite scary? Or
It was quite scary because it was the first one I did was in a school just outside Glasgow, and a completely different setting to what I had been in before. And very quickly we went into placement. We were only in uni for I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks when we were put straight into placement. So yeah, quite scary to then be given a class of 30 children that you need to do a getting to know me lesson with, and you've never had that level of responsibility before, or you've never had that experience. So yeah, quite daunting to start with, but key to it was building relationships with the teacher that you were working with, and also with your peer group that were doing the postgrad along with us, because we supported each other through it. But yeah, quite scary, and it moved very quickly from in the September doing a getting to know me lesson to by the end of May teaching for 3 full weeks with full responsibility for a class. So it moved on very, very quickly.
And was that just 2 placements you did throughout the year?
Three
placements.
3 placements. We did a nursery, an upper school and a lower school placement. So yeah.
Good. And were they all in the same school, or did you get a variety of schools?
Yeah, we got a variety of schools. So yeah, I did one placement in one school and a nursery and early level 1 in another school. So it was 2 different schools I'd been in.
And then, so you did your PGD and you got that qualification. What was your next step? Because it was probationary?
Yes, so I had to do a probation year. So, I did, and I ended up in Argyll and Bute, where I got sent from a probation year, and I had quite mixed feelings about it. I think originally there was talk of me going to Islay, which I was quite apprehensive about. I thought, I'm from an island. If I want to go to an island, I'll go to the one I'm from. I was quite apprehensive about it. But they then put me to St Columba's in Oban. So I did my probation year there. And I really enjoyed it. I was originally teaching in Gaelic medium. So at that point, the Gaelic medium classes were part of St Columba's in their old building. So I did my year there. Then we actually did 2 years there, and then we moved into the campus. So the Gaelic classes moved to Rockfield. So I then taught in Rockfield for a number of years. And again, a completely different experience, totally different school, the size. And from there, I became principal teacher in Rockfield on a temporary post. I was there for almost 2 years on a temporary post, and then the head teacher post at Barcaldine came up, which again was a completely different setting to what I had ever taught in before, because it was a very small school. So I went out there. I was successful, and I was appointed out there, and I was there for about 7 months when I started to, I found it quite difficult not having a team of staff round about me. Because it was such a different environment to what I was used to working with, and
were there like composite classes and stuff?
Yeah, it was one class for P3 to 7. There were no P1s and 2s, so that was really challenging. And I think that's for anyone going into teaching. So you have to. There's such a variety of schools sizes and contexts that you can work in. That was obviously rural and very small, and I had always worked in like bigger town schools. So the job for head teacher from St Columba's came up, and I didn't apply for it immediately because I thought I've just come to where I am and I need to stay and have an impact there. But something about it always pulled me back to it. So when it was re-advertised, I applied and was successful, and I've been there ever since.
Oh, good. So how long is that? How long did you go from when you started as a teacher, so after your probationary year, until you became a head teacher? 8 years. That's quite quick. Yeah, it is quick. It is quick, and there's part of me that wishes I hadn't been promoted quite so quickly, because I wonder, like I've been a head teacher now for 10 years, and I sit and I think, what am I going to do? What am I going to do next? But at the same time, I've been given such a wide range of opportunities and different people to work with in different contexts that I wouldn't change it. On the other hand, it's had its moments where I've thought, I shouldn't have, especially because my daughter was very young, but it's benefited us in lots of other ways. So it's, I mean, a fantastic opportunity, but quite interesting what you're saying there, that's not the end for you. So other things that you're involved in as well. How does that come about? So you're saying that you are involved in other things. I know that you've been doing inspection, is that right? Yeah. So how does that sort of stuff come about then? So I'm actually just back from inspection today. So I applied to be an associate assessor with Education Scotland. So we go as part of the inspection team into schools as the person on the ground that can, especially I think given current climate, that's able to talk about how things are different in schools post-COVID and things. So I applied for that and was interviewed and was successful in that post. So I go a minimum of 3 times a year out on inspection with Education Scotland to be able to work as part of their team. And it's really interesting to see how they work as an inspection team, and again in different contexts and things, to be able to take it back to not just within St Columba's but within Argyll and Bute. Yes, yeah, aye. So you're sort of picking up tips and it's best and worst practices, I'm guessing, as well along the way. And it's different local authorities that have got completely different procedures and practices to what we do, and it's been able to see the good, the bad and indifferent, and it's really interesting. I've enjoying it so far. And what do you think would be your next step then? Have you given that thought? Or I don't know. There's parts of the job that I absolutely love and parts of the job that I don't so much, as everybody in there in whatever it is that they're doing. Learning and teaching and curriculum is my thing. That's what I don't want to be sitting in an office all day. That's not what I want to do. So I still teach a day and a half a week up in St Columba. Do you do that through choice, or is that?
A mixture of, so there is a teaching commitment, but I do more of teaching than what I need to do.
Yeah.
But I really like that part of my job, of the interactions with the children and the relationships, and being able to lead from the ground up, because they can then see myself in practice what's needed, or what's working or what's not. Plus it keeps us as a really close team as well. So there's opportunities to come up within the local authority for me to be able to support other schools round about, which I've done a number of times, and I'm looking just now, we're kind of talking about how we can move that along even further. But at the same time, I don't want to leave where I am, because I'm very happy in St Columba's at the moment. So that's my heart's there. But I've been very fortunate with the other opportunities that I've been given to be able to do what I really, the parts of the job that I really love doing.
Yes. That's really interesting, actually, just talking to you there, because I was speaking to another childcare lecturer this morning, and when she speaks about, like, dealing with children, and because hers was like sort of younger when she worked in nursery for a while, and you're exactly the same when you talk about being involved with kids and children. You can see that in your face, that is what you want. It comes across very readily, I think, in childcare practitioners, that it's very obvious that the people that do enjoy what they're doing, you can see it straight away, and that's very clear from yours. Sorry.
Well, what I was going to say is that's something that I always say when we're interviewing anybody for posts, or when we have even students from the high school or anything come in, you can tell straight away who has and who hasn't got the enthusiasm for the job, because if you don't have that passion for relationships with children, then it's a non-starter. It is a non-starter.
So thinking about anyone who might be watching this video that might be thinking either want to go down the teaching route or go into childcare of some shape or form, what kind of skills would you say are like paramount to that person? What would you say?
I would say, first of all, that it's hard work. It is hard work, and don't be under any illusions that for teaching that it's 9 to 3. It absolutely isn't. Working as part of a team is so important. Like, you have to, and not just a team as in like a staff team, but also the team within your class, that you might lead that team of children, but you have to work as a team. You're not in charge that dictates everything. You have to work alongside the children and the parents. That if you can't build relationships with people and be empathetic towards people, then it would make the job very difficult to do. People think that teachers have this illusion that teachers know everything, and that's absolutely not the case. And not to go into teaching because you think you don't know everything, because we don't know everything. You've got to, we learn with the children, and that's a really important skill to have, to not to be afraid to say that when you need help or you need support with something. Communication is vital. You have to be able to communicate with everyone round about you, with the children, with the parents, with everybody, and you have to be willing to continue to learn, because you're learning. Every practice changes all of the time, and the children deserve to have the very best people that they can in front of them, and to do that you need to be willing to learn, and willing to learn from other people, to read more about the practices that you put in place. You need to be able to do that.
What scope is there for you for continuing professional development then? How do you get trained, and how do you keep up to date with teaching methods? And
in lots of different ways. I think that the online learning world has opened up to us in a completely different way. So because of our location, it's been more difficult in the past for us to be able to access quality professional learning, but now it's much easier for us to do. But I think we have to be careful with that as well, because you can't beat the one-to-one interaction with a person rather than it being online. And I know personally it can be quite difficult to engage online at times if there's other things going on round about you. But it's not... The reading is important, and not really difficult books to read. There's lots of things about teaching that are very practical manuals, if you like, that you can pick up and drop as you need to, depending on what it is that you're looking for. But learning from other colleagues, looking inward and outward, and going and seeing other places and and that's where one of the big benefits of me working with Education Scotland just now is being able to see practices across. That's so important, not to to keep everything closed within your own classroom or within your own earlier setting or whatever it is you're wanting to work, that you need to look outward and see what else is going on round about you.
Because no matter, I think, how well sewn up you think you've got your own job or your own role, I think there's always the opportunity to learn, isn't there, from other folk.
Definitely.
And sometimes in the most surprising places, the places that you maybe don't expect it, are doing something that you think, I would never have considered that.
Yeah.
What about, conversely then, what about teaching? Do you not enjoy? Is there any aspect of it that doesn't really?
Yeah. I mean, as with there's always bits that you don't want to do. Like, as a head teacher, the paperwork that I have, that it can be quite overwhelming at times. As teaching staff, we minimise that so that their input is put into good teaching and learning, not into filling out bits of paper. So that part of it's difficult. Working in a small community as well definitely brings us challenges when you're teaching, because you aren't anonymous within the community, and lots of people will know who you are and you don't necessarily know who they are. And that can bring its challenges. So that would definitely be something that I would suggest to people to consider if they're looking at to go into teaching, because you do become a figure in your community. You're not just a figure within your school. You do become somebody that people look up to and people expect to do certain things. But that's not to say that you don't live your own life. Of course you have to live your own life, but that you just have to be aware of that at the same time.
And constantly getting shouted at in the street by the kids. I mean, not by.
When I have family here, when I have family here, we go into Tesco and it's people chatting to you all the time. Like, who are all these people? I said, they're parents or children or former pupils, which is always lovely, because that's important. Because if you've made an impact when they're in primary school, then they do always come back and speak to you, and that's important too.
And has anybody that you've taught before, have you any experience of anyone who's gone down the teaching route that you've maybe taught before?
Yes.
That must be very satisfying.
It is satisfying. So just now we've got somebody who's going into teaching. She's just worked with us this year. I'm going to go into teaching next year. And we've got somebody else who's working with us just now, who's taking a year and then going to go and do teaching. So yeah, that is really rewarding, because you feel very old, but you also think, actually, what a different, that you've inspired them to want to do the same job as what you do.
Exactly. So if anyone were thinking of getting into teaching, then how beneficial is it to have some experience behind you before you apply to that? And how would you recommend that anyone does that?
I think it's really important that they get experience behind them, because you don't know what it's like until you're there. And I would recommend that people come and volunteer in schools.
Is that quite easy to do?
Yeah, certainly. If somebody asked to come and volunteer in St Columba's, it would be very, very rare for us to say no to that.
And would they have to be PVG checked or anything like that?
They would have to be.
In order to do that,
yeah, they would have to be PVG.
Would there be an age limit on that?
Unless it was through school because through school they don't need to be PVG'd.
Right,
but
okay.
if they were older out with, say it was somebody in their 20s who had been working and then decided they want to do some work experience, they'd need to be PVG'd. But that was something we would organise.
And what would that involve? What would they actually be doing then, if they were just volunteering with the school? What kind of things?
If it was their first experience, what we would start with would be possibly them just supporting the teacher in the classroom. So that could be, working with individual children on number bonds or times tables or spelling words and things like that, and helping out in the playground and the dinner hall, because these things are building relationships with children too, because that would be something that we would be really looking to, can that person...
Yes, people are doing that.
Yeah. And then as they were more experienced, we would maybe give them smaller groups to work with on a task that the teacher had obviously directed them to do, and giving them experience of maybe up to 6 children, and see how they got on with that. But I definitely would recommend that they got experience in a school setting, because I think it's different to what some people expect it to be, and to be able to go in and see what it's like for real, I think is really important.
Good. Okay, I think that's everything that I think we could possibly try and steer someone toward, your career with there. It's really useful information there, and fantastic to get that sort of first-hand experience that you've had. So thank you very much for joining us. And hopefully some of the people that will be watching this video today may have some experience of, either being in the same school as you, or you may even have been their head teacher and they'll recognise you. So a shout out to all your former pupils. But thanks very much.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.